Okay, my paper is called From Merkozy to Homer. I could have chose another Merkozy, you know, Merkel, Sarkozy. I could have chosen Reland. I could have chosen the first syllable of Hollande. I could have chosen the first syllable of Merkel and the last syllable of Hollande. And that would have pleased some, yeah. Merde, that would have mean, you know, even though it's French, most of you would not understand it. But what I'm trying to demonstrate at this point, there's a consensus. Everyone agrees that the future of the euro, and therefore the future of the EU, will be decided mostly in Germany. But the point is, how much? Is it 90% under German, as was the case under Merkozy, or the Deauville team, as it was? And definitely when the approach to the European problem was punitive, it can be said. I remember organizing a seminar in London in March 2010 when Professor Collignon, the German social democrat, started his intervention, much to everyone's amazement, by saying, Greeks are criminals. Therefore, they must be punished for their profligacy. I would be surprised. And which has led, after that, purely coercive measures. Punitive, as Winthrop mentioned. And as David showed, this type of policy has brought Europe into recession. The austerity that came as part of the package, which illustrated by the famous fiscal compact which Sarkozy and Merkel proposed together. So in that case, we're talking about a Franco-German relationship, but the real decisions were made by the Germans. It was, as did Zeit put it, Merkel took the decisions and Sarkozy would do the press conference. Or as the economist put it, it was a tandem, yes. You had a BMW motorbike and alongside a little Peugeot sidecar. That was it. So, as a result, many people were pinning hopes on a change of government. Not Merkel, who during the campaign refused to meet Hollande and gave her backing on television to Sarkozy, which I think was partly responsible for his defeat. Not quite, but I'm sure it did not help. It did not help at all. So, Hollande's arrival in May led to the summit of June. Was it going to be a game changer? It proved to be a game changer. Hollande was quick in his campaign to denounce the fiscal compact, said he would renegotiate it, said that Europe should shift its priorities, go from austerity to growth, and should move from austerity to solidarity with the weaker countries. We all live together and work in that direction. So, the problem for Hollande is that France is in a very inferior economic situation to that of Germany, especially when it comes to its current account surplus and its public finances, which are worse than Germany. So Hollande had to have a tactic. He was quick to give up on his promise to renegotiate the fiscal compact. He realized that it was absolutely crucial for France to claim that it would stick to its fiscal objectives, i.e. 3% deficit in 2013, even though it looks very unlikely, but they keep repeating that they're going to try to do that. But the main change in Hollande's strategy was to try to get out from this head-to-head with Merkel and try to rally the support of other leaders, especially Monti and Rajoy, and at the same time also liaise closely with the Commission to try to find a way forward. So, as a result, I think the economic situation, the continued deterioration of the economic situation, led to a change of attitude on the part of the Germans. They realized that the economic downturn everywhere else in Europe was beginning to affect them. Has led to some improvement in the last 6 months, which have materialized at the last at the June summit, in which Hollande accepted the fiscal compact and managed to get a token approval for a plan of growth of 120 billion, but not completely. It's just a token. It will not change the course of economic performance in the Eurozone. But I think the biggest achievement of the June summit was the setting in motion of the banking union principle, which I don't want to go into detail, even though Germany is not very keen, but we know, we've seen that there's been some steps and it will come forward at some point. Germany doesn't want it to apply too soon, doesn't want it to apply to small banks, but even though they pose a systemic risk to, maybe they want to protect their land banks, some of them being in quite a lot of financial trouble, I understand. Since then, there's also been a big shift, which has been mentioned by both previous speakers, on the role of Mario Draghi, the outright monetary transaction program, with strict conditions attached. And another point which was achieved was the commitment to preserving the integrity of Greece, of the Eurozone, by removing the possibility of a Greek exit. So, commitment for Greece to stay in the Euro, which materialized just a few days ago by the recent agreement, which we won't go into detail. So, but many tensions remain between Paris and Berlin. Some over the issue of the banking union, we can talk about that in the debate, and obviously on the issue of Eurobonds, with Hollande would be very keen to promote, and also on the issue, a longer-term issue of an economic government, the Eurozone governance, where France would like a Euro group of finance ministers to meet, appoint a full-time president, and coordinate economic policy, but the Germans don't like that idea. They think that the Eurogroup could erode the independence of the European Central Bank. And they also would like a budget for the Eurozone, which is something that is in the pipeline. Maybe we'll see how it goes. But all these developments have put Merkel on the back foot. And she's reacted. She's reacted in two ways. The first way, on part of the German establishment, quite noticeable, is first to, I would say, to undermine Hollande's economic credibility. We've seen many reports coming from Germany, not just Germany. You've seen the Economist cover that France is a basket case, etc., which I personally don't agree. I think that the fact that France would never pay its debt is totally absurd. The downgrading of the last grade, downgrading of A, is completely ridiculous. At the same time, Hollande, they did not like the fact that maybe some of his economic policy, the problem with Hollande is that he seemed to be someone who did not who wanted to preserve the underprivileged. It was not up to them to pay for the crisis. They had to pay. It was not, his policies were not socialist, but basically he was trying to have a kind of more balance, trying to purchase, to protect the purchasing power of the less well-off in French society, and which I think is something which is paying off, because I don't know if David agrees with the figures. The only country in which household consumption has gone up in the last few years has been France. It's never gone down, and you could say, in a way, it is almost acting as a locomotive, while Germany, in spite of its amazing economic figures, is not pulling its weight. They are not, the people are still not buying. So maybe there's something to be said for the approach of Hollande, which is based on fiscal orthodoxy in a certain way, based on fairness also. You know, they highlighted the fact that you want to tax the rich, etc. We could talk about that at a level, the symbolic value and so on. But the main, and that's what the core of my argument here, is that the main reaction of Merkel has been to propose a political union. And the French press, especially the Euro-enthusiastic French press, the intelligentsia, which is in France also very admirative of the German model, has been very quick in condemning Hollande for not following. Look, the Germans propose political union. Why don't you go for it? Political union, yes, as a prerequisite to a fiscal transfer union. They want, say, and to Eurobonds, they propose a political union, which is quite understandable. They would like to increase the degree of control. You don't lend your, as the Germans put it, you don't lend your credit card to people unless you can control closely the way they use it, unless you can control their spending. So, the French response has been very cool and very hesitant. And I think, especially Hollande's response, and I think it's because Hollande thinks it's part bluff of Angela Merkel. Well, actually, it could be argued that they are the main beneficiaries of this. So that's another, we could discuss that point. It will be something that can be argued at a later stage. I want to be very quick. And as was pointed out by the previous speaker, they're happy to not to have strong reforms and to let the ECB do the business, to play the fireman, and keep the Eurozone going until the next election, at least, and no steps until then. At the same time, and all the opinion surveys show that maybe at most 1/3 of Germans would be in favor of a political union, and most of the political intelligentsia, the political elites in Germany, except some of the old guard, Schäuble and Westerwelle, with his proposal, would be in favor, but most of the elites of Germany are not very keen on this idea. And also there's the big issue of the constitution, the basic law, which would need to be changed to allow for that. So that would be a big step. And will it be successful? It will take a long time. There are many question marks about changing the German constitution before allowing for more political union. So, at the same time, it will require a new treaty. A new treaty in Europe. Now, negotiation. Europe, which is already suffering from institutional fatigue. The whole constitution is linked to the Lisbon Treaty. It took about 7-8 years of our thinking, which could have been focused maybe on improving the Eurozone then, but instead we are dealing with institutional issues. So we would need to reopen the treaty issue, the debate. And with the growing degree of Euro skepticism currently in Europe, given the poor performance in the European Union, it might be very difficult to achieve, to have that ratified. And at the same time, Hollande is French and has remembered only too well the 2005 trauma. Hollande was a big supporter of the Constitution in 2005, which the French and then the Dutch rejected, much to everyone's surprise. Because for one reason, they fought, many reasons, but one of the main reasons, the reason why the left, it split Hollande's Socialist Party. The Socialist Party was split apart. The Socialist Party, which had always been in favor of European integration, far more than the right, far more than the left, decided this time, split completely on that issue, and many decided to vote against it, because they thought that this constitution was setting the neoliberal model in stone. It was an ultra-liberal, to So for economic doctrine reasons, they thought that Europe had changed from an old social democratic Europe at the time of the law, or Christian democratic, to a very British Europe, in a way, a free market Europe, a Europe more suited to business than to people. That was the main reason for the rejection of the French in 2005. So, very difficult issue for Hollande to promote at this stage. The wounds are still fresh in the minds of Socialist Party leaders. So he prefers a more incremental approach. Some little steps which show that we're all in it together, and then maybe we can talk about political union. And it's not true that a more integrated Europe will necessarily be a better Europe. Actually, on one issue, on the institutional level, is actually more German than Sarkozy was. Don't forget that François Hollande was one of the closest advisors to Jacques Delors. He's a bit of a federalist himself. He is very much for decentralization. He doesn't like too much the idea of the super hyper president deciding everything in a tradition. He actually has a lot of sympathy for the German approach of dialogue, consensus, and decentralization. And therefore, politically, he wouldn't be opposed institutionally to a kind of German Europe, which is institutionally German.